Eddie? Eddie, the keys. Have you got the keys? Come on. Sam! Sam, for God's sake, come on.
Mr. Davis wanted to know why you didn't call him back yesterday afternoon.
Mr. Who?
Mr. Davis, remember? The cereal packet?
Yeah. What do you want?
Eddie, don't kid with me. He wanted his job.
Can you call him for me, Jill? Tell him it'll be ready, lunchtime?
Paula, did anything come of the premature baby story?
Oh, the Hutchins baby died, I'm afraid, so I couldn't follow it up.
I think it could still be interesting. Just make it more general.
Okay.
Dr. Blair, Dr. J. Hamilton, Dr. J. Hamilton.
This is the nursery where many of the premature babies are kept. This one's not premature, she's growth retarded. She has the fetal alcohol syndrome because of her mother's drinking during pregnancy, and it's left her with both physical and mental disabilities.
Awful. I mean, the mother must feel terrible.
Well, I'm not sure that she does. I don't think she really quite realizes that there's any relationship between her baby's condition and how much she drank. You see, she's been drinking very heavily herself and probably suffers from brain damage. So she's not in very good shape.
What do you mean, brain damage? I thought that was just an old cliche people used after a late night.
No, alcohol can cause serious brain damage.
Did you know you could get brain damage from drinking?
Yeah, I suppose so.
I think it'd make a good story.
Oh, no, it's a bit tired, alcoholism and all that bleeding heart stuff. I don't want to get into it.
Well, that's the whole point.
What's the whole point?
Well, nobody wants to get into it because it's not just old men on park benches. This baby's mother was a sales executive, and now she's so brain damaged she won't be even able to care for her own baby. Not to speak of the damage you did to it before it was born. She's only 27 years old, Bob. She's younger than me.
So, we're getting old. I like a drink myself. She's a rare case.
Evidently she's not. It's just we don't hear about it. I'd like to suss it out. You hungry?
Yep.
Good.
What's for dinner?
Burgers? Hey.
Oh, we need a big game from you on Saturday, and then we should beat them, I reckon.
Eddie, you can't play cricket on Saturday. You said you look after the kids.
No,
I never said that.
No,
You know, I
didn't,
always play
Mum.
cricket on Saturday.
I know,
Mum.
Sam. I heard you the first time. You said you'd let Dave stand in for you and give me a free day, and now I've made arrangements. It's the only time I can catch this, Doctor.
I would never have said that, Paula. We're playing the leaders on Saturday. I would never have said Dave could stand in.
No, this one's Julian, Sam. Look, take him away while I finish these, would you?
Come here, Sam. Well, I don't remember, but it seems you're always right, so I'll organise something.
We'll organise something.
Won't we, Sam?
Yep.
What's so important on Saturday, anyway?
I have an interview with the Director of Drug and Alcohol Services at Roselle Hospital.
On Saturday? You're pretty keen, aren't you? What'll it be, mate? Red or white?
Oh, whatever.
Mum, Andy's alright.
Andy rang and said that his mum's not expecting Sam.
Well, what do you mean? I thought you planned it all with your dad.
We did. Yeah, he promised.
Eddie, I thought you were going to organise the kids. Didn't you ring Auntie's mum?
It all got too complicated. Everyone wanting to do something different. Sam can go to Mark's with Julian.
Oh, but Dad, I hate Mark.
Don't start, Sam. I'm not having you ruining the day with your whinging.
Oh, he's not so bad, darling. Try being nice to him.
It's a major health problem in Australia. We have about 8 times the incidence of alcohol-related brain damage compared with other Western countries like the United States and the United Kingdom. And yet there is almost no information available on it to the Australian public.
So what about the baby's mother?
Well, unfortunately, we can't force her to receive help, and she doesn't think she's got a problem. So, you see, it's a very frightening and difficult thing for someone to admit that they're alcoholic, let alone that they're brain damaged as well.
Well, surely you'd know if you're an alcoholic.
No, not at all. In fact, the alcoholic's often the last person to know, because it's the nature of the problem that the more you drink, the less self-aware you become. Over 90% of the people that we get here are alcoholics, but they don't think of themselves that way, and neither do their relatives.
So if they don't think they're alcoholic, they're certainly not going to suspect that they have brain damage.
No, precisely. And I think if you're doing the article, you really have to make that very clear, that the sort of people who get brain damage are often quite unaware that they're running that risk. And it can also happen very young. We're getting a lot now in their 20s. And it seems that if you start drinking before the brain's fully mature, then you do the same amount of damage a lot faster. And also they're hampered by the lack of the normal maturing process. See, if when you're an adolescent you blot out every emotion as it comes with alcohol or drugs, then you end up with someone in their 20s with the emotional maturity of a teenager, although they're really fully grown.
This is Barry.
Well, who's winning?
Just,
Look, I'm doing a story on alcohol-related brain damage, and would you mind me asking you a few questions?
not at all.
Well, can you tell me, what was your drinking story?
15, still at school. It was mainly Friday night, Saturday night. Dutch carriage to get up to go into a dance. 3 tinnies. After I left school, went to work. It was usually Thursday, Friday, Saturdays. Down the pub.
Did you have any idea that it could lead to brain damage?
No, not a clue.
Could you talk a little bit about how you drank?
Well, I started drinking alcoholically approximately 10 years ago. Before that, I would say I was a social drinker. Social drinker, I mean, yes, I just had the odd few drinks and I could leave it completely. And I left it for some time and, you know, I could go back and have a few drinks and that, but then I actually got hooked on it.
What did you drink?
Basically beer. I did start off in brandy initially, but it was I dropped the brandy and it was basically beer all the time.
Did you work?
I've always worked during my drinking years. I was cooking. That was my last job. Before that, I was working in a theatrical agency.
How did you feel when you found out you had brain damage from alcohol abuse?
Well, I couldn't believe it because I didn't realise that it did affect the brain. I mean, I had a rough idea that it, say, affect the kidneys or that, which didn't scare me. But I couldn't believe the brain damage bit.
Thanks very much. I appreciate your time. Bye-bye. It's lovely. Bye-bye.
Oh, I was devastated, totally devastated. You know, like I was one of those people that used to sit in the bar with a schooner thinking, oh, well, you know, down a schooner, there goes a few million more brain cells. And, you know, it was sort of a laughing sort of a matter, you know. And then when, you know, when I finally was tested and they told me that, you know, I do have brain damage, it just sort of floored me. It really did, you know.
Did you have any idea you could be affected?
No, because I'd always considered myself quite intelligent. I have an IQ of 120 plus. At one stage, not too long ago, I was had one of the sort of the biggest advancements in the public service.
Could you do that now?
With great difficulty, because my planning and organising skills are so shot to pieces that I'd just be sort of fumbling my way in the dark.
Hello, Paula.
Oh.
My name's Nick. How are you?
Hello, I'm Jeffrey.
How do you do?
Well, my story is I began drinking at 18, and I drank socially and moderately for a large number of years. It was really in the last 3 or 4 years that I drank heavily and increasingly heavily. I just suppose I drank as heavily as most people in the academic community with them.
What do you do?
I'm a senior lecturer at one of the large Australian universities.
When you have organisational problems, it means that basically that what maybe took you 10 minutes to do, a particular task, a year ago may be taking you 20 minutes. Because you all sound okay and appear okay, people expect very normal things of you. And so it's important for you to realise that you can tend to fool people. Quite often, when people ask you to do something, and I'm sure you've all been in this situation, you actually don't get round to doing it. And I suggest that a lot of that is to do with your damage, because in damage there is a difficulty between actually knowing what you have to do and translating it into action. I'm sure you've frustrated a lot of your wives, a lot of your friends by saying, yes, that's exactly what I have to do, and they think, fine, he knows what he has to do. 3 weeks later, you still haven't done it. So it's important that you be aware that that's not just your procrastination because of your alcoholism, but also the fact that you have sustained permanent damage, and it is hard to put often what you need to do into action.
We won!
Guess I'll have to forgive you for being late then. Hello, darling. What's the matter? What's the matter, huh?
Look, it wasn't
He
Mark's
kissed
fault.
you.
It wasn't.
I don't want to go.
G'day.
Hi, Peter. Why couldn't Claire stick it out?
Nah.
You, don't you? Why not?
Because he kicked me.
Let's celebrate.
Looks like you already have.
4 for 32, 56, not out.
Have a nice day. Yes, hurry up. I know I've said this 100 times before, but I really can't stand being late anymore.
I know, nor can I. I got so much work on. Tell you what, let's have an early night tonight. Hmm? You get the kids away early. I'll have a romantic dinner. I'll get an excellent bottle of wine. Go to bed, make love, be asleep by 11.
Sounds good enough to justify being late.
How am I going to get any work done with all these calls to make? Jill, can't you do some of these for me? Hmm?
Yeah, you can at least call your mate from INFs.
Okay, but anyone else calls, you tell them I'm in a meeting.
Oh, well, I hope I'm going to be rewarded in heaven, because I'm certainly not getting anything here.
Bill? Yeah, it's Eddie. No, mate, no, I can't. I've got too much work on. Mate, I can't, okay? Yeah, okay. Well, I'll drop in for just a minute. That has to be it. Okay.
I can't believe what I'm finding out. Well, I don't understand why there's so little information in the community about it.
Because people don't really want to know.
Well, I think it deserves a full page. What do you think?
We're not going a bit over the top, are we?
People need to know.
People need to know a lot of things, but it doesn't sell newspapers.
Well, I've had a patient who was only 32, and up until a few weeks before she came into hospital, she'd in fact been a researcher for a television network, and she'd been looking after her family and married and all the rest of it, and then she went on a terrific binge and came into hospital with a complete memory whiteout.
How frightening.
Yes, well, it was frightening, really. Firstly, she was terribly young. Secondly, she was really looking to a lifetime of institutional care. Thirdly, she was really severely damaged. And fourthly, it just all happened so quickly, just in 6 weeks.
6 weeks. Oh. What about if a normal drinker went on a 6-week binge? I mean, could he end up with brain damage?
Well, it really depends what you mean by a normal drinker.
Well, let's say someone who had a few drinks with lunch, a scotch before dinner, a half a bottle of wine with a meal, and maybe a few beers at cricket on the weekends. Say someone who only drank that much suddenly lost his job, or his wife left him, and he got depressed and started drinking more. I mean, he could end up with brain damage.
Well, he may have already had some brain damage with the levels of drinking that he was at before he got depressed and started to increase his alcohol consumption. And we're not just worried about the dramatic cases of brain damage that occurred with this kind of drinking in that young lady I was telling you about, but we're also just as much concerned about the brain damage that occurs in people drinking half as much, which results maybe in half as much brain damage, which is possibly more common.
Probably, or almost certainly, the commonest form of alcohol-related brain damage is a type of frontal lobe damage, which occurs not only in the park bench stereotyped alcoholic, but can affect and does affect people who call themselves social drinkers. And another important form of alcohol-related brain damage is what we call the Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome. Korsakoff's is characterized by a severe loss of short-term memory, so that remote events, things that are experienced in childhood and previously acquired skills are retained, but it's impossible for someone with Korsakoff's to learn anything new.
Anything?
That's right. There are people who are so badly affected that they can't recall anything new.
So what did you conclude from your research?
Well, our conclusions were that damage to the frontal lobes causes impairment to our higher intelligence, which means we lose the ability to do complex problem solving, learning, planning and organisation, decision making, and we also lose insight into our own behaviour.
Does the body break down before significant brain damage? I mean, the myth is that if my liver's okay, then my brain's okay.
Well, we tend to think it actually probably works the other way round. We think that the brain damage actually occurs before any obvious physical signs come through. It's very slow and it's very subtle. No one can ever put their finger on a time when it exactly starts, and you can usually not even see the deterioration over a small period of time.
What about people who just drink on the weekend or binge drinkers?
Well, they are certainly not safe. The regular drinker builds up a tolerance to alcohol. So by drinking the same amount every day, they get used to it. Whereas the binge drinker goes along without any alcohol and gets suddenly hit by a large dose, which may cause more brain damage than continually just topping up.
How's it going?
Do you have blackouts?
Well, you mean when you drink so much the night before you can't remember anything about it in the morning? Not often. But Peter does. I'm always having to tell him what he said last night.
Well, they think if you're drinking enough to have blackouts, you're likely to be causing brain damage.
Just because you have blackouts doesn't mean you're an alcoholic.
Well, they reckon if you have them constantly enough, it's a good indication that you are.
But...
Well, it makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, if the brain's not operating well enough to have any memory while you're conscious, then you must be doing some sort of damage.
Boy, oh boy, after all that, I need a drink. Coffee. Want one?
I'll have a tea, please. Now, if you go to bed drunk, you stop breathing properly because you lose muscle tone in your tongue. Actually, you're having minor episodes of choking, which starts the brain of oxygen, and you kind of wake up. And the more drunk you are, the longer it takes to wake up, and the more the brain is starved.
How often does this happen?
Well, it can go on all night. And if you're already somebody who snores, it's worse.
Peter snores.
People don't know what they're doing to themselves.
Sure they know. They just don't want to change their habits.
How? Now they think even social drinking causes brain damage. Did you know that?
I know that. I've killed off a few brain cells in my time, but there's still plenty more left up there.
Well, I'm afraid that's hogwash. You kill off particular areas that can't be replaced. The messages in the brain pass through neurons. When we drink, they shrink. They reconstruct when you stop, but with enough abuse, they die. So there are large numbers of people out there walking around with varying degrees of neurological death.
Yuck. You are really ruining my drinking. Just go away and do it.
Full page?
Anything. I don't want to hear any more about brain cells, right?
Thanks, Bob. You won't regret it. Well, you will, but it's time you change your lifestyle anyway.
Tell them I'll get it tomorrow.
You said you're only going to drop in for a minute to Bill's lunch. I mean, you've been gone for hours. You said you wanted to get home early tonight.
Well, I couldn't help it. All the agency people were there and I had to have a drink.
Sorry to keep you waiting, Mr. Richards, but there's been a few unexpected problems with your job.
Hi.
Claire, I'm sorry about carrying on earlier.
It's all right. Made me think. I used to drink like a fish in my 20s. That's a thing to do. Everyone did it.
I know. I guess that's why I'm so obsessed with it. I've never had to question the way Eddie and I lived before. I mean, he doesn't drink any more than anybody else, and yet I find myself counting his drinks these days. I just hate myself.
Charming.
The worst thing is, it doesn't affect what you already know, just your ability to gain new knowledge. Now, how would you know if you were damaged? I mean, most of us are set in our patterns and talk about familiar things.
Well, Peter certainly does tell the same boring old stories at every dinner party we go to.
Good night, Julian.
Night.
Night, Sam.
Night, Mum.
Hello?
Sorry, sweetheart, I have to work back tonight.
Oh, Eddie, what do you mean you have to work back? We were going to have an early night.
I'm sorry, Paula. I really am. I was called away today and I got behind. I don't want to be here either. I was looking forward to a nice, quiet night together.
Well, couldn't you...
What?
Oh, nothing. It's okay. I understand. What time do you think?
10:30.
Okay. Well, I'll go to bed. I'll see you later, okay? Bye-bye.
seen you wearing a dress for a while. What's the special occasion?
Nothing. Just trying to look professional. Oh, and I've got a lunch on today.
With one of your doctors?
What do you mean, my doctors?
Well, I've never seen you get so excited about a story. I just thought you'd been acting a bit differently lately. I don't know why this story seems so important to you. And now you're having lunches with them.
Jesus Christ, Eddie, not this again. There's more going on in the world than infidelity, you know. This story is important to me because what I'm finding out is terrifying. On Saturday, I saw people like you and me in that hospital, some of them so badly damaged they'll be institutionalized for life.
Well, they should have taken it easy before it got so bad.
God, Eddie, you don't just wake up one morning and say, gosh, I've got brain damage. It's so gradual you don't even notice it's happening.
You must know something.
Well, you don't. It starts with little things that you don't notice, like your memory's not so good, or ordinary jobs take longer to do than they used to, or you have trouble learning something new. No one connects that stuff with their drinking.
No, because it's just probably old age. It is with me.
Sure. That's just the problem. Everybody can find some way to justify it so they can go on drinking. But the trouble is, alcohol accelerates aging. It's like a premature aging of the brain. I wish you'd take it seriously, Eddie. It's a very serious business.
Not too serious to have over lunch.
I'm going to a farewell lunch for one of the subs, accompanied by the entire staff.
Sure.
So, we're in a worse shitty than usual this morning.
Shitty? Who's shitty? How'd you like lunch today?
Sure. But first, Wally's coming in to give you a lesson on the computer, and, well, Max will be in today, and you're supposed to have entered all your accounts and briefs and dates and stuff.
I've done it fine my way for years. What on earth do I need it on a bloody computer for?
Oh, you know, it makes it simpler to see what's going where, and we can link up with the accounts department. Oh, come on, Eddie, it's no big deal. I mean, it's not hard to learn. You're just being stubborn.
I've already tried. I'm no good with electronics. Couldn't you do it for me? It'll only take you a minute. Take me hours to learn.
It is not that hard. Anyone can do it.
Claire, look, I'm not going to be able to make it back in time for lunch. No, I'm just going to have to wait and see if I can interview him somewhere around here. Yeah, would you please give my apologies? Okay, thanks. Bye. Jill? Oh, I'm sorry, is Jill there? Oh, she's gone to lunch. Well, actually, I wanted to speak to Eddie. Oh, he's gone to lunch too. You mean together? Oh. Well, it's very important that he gets this message. When will he be back? Good. Well, tell him that his wife's tied up and he has to collect the kids. Are you absolutely sure that he'll get that message? Okay. Okay. Thank you. So, Dr. Hawkes, what did your study with the National Health and the Medical Research Council conclude was a safe number of drinks per day?
Well, it's very difficult to give a straightforward answer to that. There is no universally safe level at which one can drink alcohol. But what we have recently agreed is that one, as a male, can drink 4 glasses of beer or the equivalent of 4 glasses of wine or 4 measures of spirit, and that is compatible with good health. And to drink more than 6 is to invite harm.
Is it the same for women?
No, it's different for women. In the case of women, the levels are reduced. We're talking about 2 middies of beer, 2 glasses of wine, 2 middies of spirits. And the basis for that distinction is the way in which we metabolize alcohol. Women have less fluid in their body. They may appear to be larger in some cases, but they in fact have less fluid. So the alcohol that they drink is more concentrated in their body and has a more damaging effect on their organs as a consequence.
4 drinks a day for men and 2 for women. That's not much by Australian standards. Do you anticipate it's going to be hard to get the message out to Australian society?
It's going to be very difficult. And of course, we are also having to compete with the other messages that are provided in society, messages that are put out by the producers of alcohol and those who promote it, which would seek to persuade us that we can drink any amount of alcohol without harm. And of course, that's very much in evidence in the way sporting activities are associated with drinking. There is an attempt on the part of people promoting alcohol to suggest that drinking alcohol is compatible with being a very high-level sportsman, being beautiful, being healthy, being young. These are all associations which are being made in the way alcohol is advertised. And we are inclined to think that it is really only the minority of people who get into difficulties. In fact, a much larger number of people get into difficulties with alcohol than ever appear to be alcoholic.
How'd you go with Dr. Hawkes? Did you find out how much we can drink?
The news is not good, I'm afraid.
Why?
About 6 glasses for men and 4 for women is considered harmful.
You're kidding. How many glasses in a bottle of wine?
Oh, I guess about 6 or 7. Not much, eh?
Everyone I know drinks more than that.
It's the lottery. After that amount, they can't guarantee you won't be one of the ones that gets damaged. I'm really sick of this story. I'll see you later. If I wanted Bea to pick up the kids, I would have called her. I've already called her too many times.
Well, she said it was no problem. Anyway, you know I never come back that way.
Well, couldn't you do it just once to pick up your own children?
I couldn't have anyway. I had an important job to finish.
Not so important you couldn't have lunch with your secretary.
How dare you check up on me?
Check up on you? I called you to pick up the kids.
Look, we're not going to fight over this. The kids got picked up. You got your precious interview, or was it lunch? I got my job done, and let's have a drink and forget it.
God, I don't believe you, Eddie. I'm sick of carrying the load around here, Eddie. If it's too complicated for you to help with the children, maybe you could contribute to the family by dropping the laundry if that's not too much to ask.
Okay. I'll do the laundry. Come on, Paula, don't be so bloody silly. I just couldn't pick them up this time.
This time, any time. You've always got some sort of excuse, Eddie.
Well, I'll get them next time.
Well, you better get them next time, or we may as well be living on our own for all you do. Come on, kids, it's dinner time. Don't forget, Eddie.
These are the x-rays of the brains of 2 patients. This is a normal patient, and this is an alcoholic. And the main difference between these x-rays is that this is the brain tissue, and this is the brain fluid, the dark areas. And you can see in the alcoholic patient that the dark areas, the brain fluid, are much larger. And around the surface of the brain, there is much more fluid, indicating that the brain is shrunken. And what we found is that from the frontal part of the brain, there's a 20% loss of nerve cells. Nerve cells shrink with alcohol. The area that we've found the nerve cell loss is in this area of the brain. This is called the frontal lobe. And it's very important for making accurate judgments, for problem solving, and for learning and organisation. And you can see in the alcoholic that this is the part of the brain that is particularly shrunken.
What about people who only drink socially?
We've just had a paper published on men who drink between 30 and 80 grams of alcohol per day. That's 3 to 8 drinks. And we certainly know that at 80 grams per day, there is definite pathological brain damage.
This study here, is this to do with your Wernicke-Korsakoff's cases?
Yes, we find that only 20% of cases of Wernicke-Korsakoff are diagnosed during life.
What do you find in post-mortem?
Well, if we look at a photograph of a brain slice, this is a normal patient, and this is the brain of a young man. He was only 18 years of age, a young alcoholic, and you can see that he's got small hemorrhages all through the brain tissue. After repeated episodes of this, we end up with a brain that looks like this, with very small, shrunken areas of the brain, and these areas are critical for memory. And this is characteristic of what patients with the Korsakoff psychosis do.
Okay, it's simple. Just enter the same keys I showed you yesterday. Come on, mate. That's the same mistake you did before. Now, don't be so bloody minded. It's simple.
Come on, kids, bedtime. Hey. Not another one. You had a whiskey before dinner, a bottle of wine with dinner. Don't you think that's enough?
It's no more than I usually drink, and it's never mattered before.
Well, I know things now I didn't know before.
I don't want to hear them. I'm not going to change my life just because you get excited about a story. What'll it be next time? Vitamins? I'm getting really sick of this job of yours, Paula.
Where's the laundry, Eddie?
I forgot the bloody laundry. What's that got to do with anything? We don't need the amount of laundry that goes through this house anyway.
Eddie, I've been looking at shrunken brains today, brains scarred by alcohol abuse. Now, I may be overreacting, but you drink too much.
That'd be ridiculous. I don't drink any more than anyone else. It helps me relax in the evening. I only drink in the day when I have to for my work. Anyway, it's one of the few pleasures in my life. Would you rather I slept around?
God, Eddie.
Come on, kids. Bed.
No!
Bed.
No!
Go to bed.
No!
Come on, if you want to go to the concert on Saturday.
Jill, do me a favour for me, will you? Drop this off at lunch.
Come on, Eddie. There's a laundromat right near your place. What is it?
Come on, let me save my marriage. I'll buy you lunch.
Okay, give it to me. By the way, the boss wants to see you.
Morning, Max.
Sit down. Eddie, you're one of the best artists we've got. You've been here years. You've always fitted in every way. You've always been happy to adapt.
Oh, thanks, Max.
So I'm afraid I don't understand why you refuse to adjust to a computerized system which could be more efficient for everyone, including yourself.
Well, it just seems to have taken me a little while to learn, Max.
Eddie, you've had 6 months. You're the only one in the firm who hasn't. I'm afraid it indicates a serious lack of interest in the job. I've taken the liberty of getting your junior partner to do your records for you. And I've adjusted your salary accordingly.
They were waiting at the school gate for hours. And then they got on the wrong bus. By the time they found them, they were hysterical.
I got demoted today. That little upstart's getting half my salary.
You're drunk. I don't know what you're talking about.
He's my junior. He has no experience. He's getting half my salary. Should have known he was scheming behind my back. I'm sorry, kids. I felt so terrible. I just had to go to have a drink with Peter. Must have forgotten.
Eddie. Eddie, how could you forget your own children?
Didn't forget my own children. Forgot that you asked me to collect my children.
Eddie. Eddie, you've got to stop drinking.
What's that got to do with anything? Paula, get off my back.
What can you do if you think someone's an alcoholic? Maybe even brain damaged?
There's not a lot you can do until they want to get well themselves. Often their denial is so strong that they won't listen to what you have to say about their drinking.
But there must be something you can do, I mean, practically.
You can only make sure the information is there if they ask for it. There is plenty of help available, a lot of clinics, hospitals, counsellors, private and public, specialised in the area of alcoholism. I also strongly recommend AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. It helps keep people sober and it increases the quality of their life. But the bottom line is that they have got to want to get sober themselves. It just doesn't work if you force them before they're ready.
Paula.
Don't worry, I'll make the deadline. I'm doing the last interview today.
Paula, forget the interview. We can't run the story.
Can't run it?
The advertising department are holding us to ransom. They're running a big supplement for Village Wines and they want us to ease off. Anyway, I never really liked the idea.
But you know how important it is. Someone's been working on you, Bob. You should have fought for it.
Paula, I'm not out to save the world. I'm just a newspaper editor who'll lose his job if I don't pull my weight.
Oh, don't be pitiful, Bob.
I'm sorry, mate. I really am. I know how you feel.
No, I don't think you do. We're doing a feature article on brain damage from alcohol abuse. Well, actually, we're not doing a feature, but would you mind doing the interview anyway?
No problem.
What happens to people when you tell them a relative has alcohol-related brain damage?
Most people are devastated. They feel it's the worst possible thing that could have happened to them. I mean, you've just told them that somebody close to them suffering from two of the most highly stigmatized illnesses known to our society, alcoholism and brain damage. They feel it's disgusting. They don't know how bad it's going to get.
Would you mind if I had a cup of tea?
No, not at all.
Thank you.
I'll have one too.
Milk, sugar?
Just milk, thanks. These people are suffering an enormous loss. The loss of who that person used to be. People have fantasy, if you like, of what life is going to be like and what you can expect of that person. When you tell them that, say, their partner is permanently brain damaged, then that whole fantasy has to be rewritten, so to speak. And it's a problem for these people because no matter what action they take, it's not going to match what they thought they had. If they leave, they're in danger of living with guilt for putting their own lives first, which most of us have been taught is wrong. But if you stay, then you commit yourself to a life you didn't plan for, with a partner who's not who you thought they were.
can do is to help people see that they do have a choice. And that they should do what's right for themselves. Because it probably wouldn't help, particularly if the partner's still drinking, if you stay through guilt. I always push really strongly that no one is to blame. In most cases, no one even knew what was happening. People tend to think, oh, I should have done something. I should have noticed. I should have stopped them. There's nothing you can do. You can't stop them. It might be valuable to your research, I think, if you sat in on some groups that they have for relatives of people with alcohol-related brain damage.
Relatives often feel absolutely devastated.
The only thing I understood was that he was a drunk. Didn't even used to be an alcoholic. And it wasn't until the last time that he got sick and he got in the hospital and then had to have the assessment that I heard that he had brain damage. I panicked. I fought with people. I screamed and didn't know what to do and prayed, everything.
Have any of you had this experience?
Well, I always put it down to just the drinking, like the morning after, and he had no patience, very short on the patience. And I don't think at that stage I thought that he had brain damage. It was only when certain other traumatic things would happen in the home, I'd actually think he's mad.
If someone had a broken leg, you wouldn't expect them to mow the lawn, would you? Now, if someone has brain damage, you can't expect them to think completely normally. So you just start relating to them in a different way. Utilize the parts of them that are still at their best. If they're still drinking, then what you can do for them is reduce stress on them by simply not asking them to do what they can't do. Feeling bad or guilty can lead to the need to drink. They're not write-offs, they're not vegetables, nothing like that. If you've got someone who's got a mild level of damage, they can continue to work, they can continue to do what they've always done. So relatives don't have to think they've got to rush out and do something instantly. The first thing you've got to do is get support for yourself, and secondly, try to accept that the person has brain damage.
You'd be surprised how many people are out there that just don't know the brain damage with alcohol. Someone, there's a very clever fellow just the other day said to me, "Never knew you could get that from alcohol."
Some friend of Tony bumped into me, asked how Tony was. I said, oh, he's getting better. Oh, poor Tony, that friend said there. And I thought by myself at that moment, poor Tony. Good grief, I'm walking in the rain here. Tony's lying in an air-conditioned room, gets 3 meals a day. And it is poor Tony. So I started to laugh more or less about it. That way I could sort of carry on a bit better. But it wasn't funny, really. But those are the things that keep you going.
Some of the incidents when they do happen are so dramatic, they're just so awful. So they found him, we bundled him into the car, and halfway home he fell off the seat and they were sort of pushing him up and everyone screaming at him and everything, etc. And we got him home, we just left him in the driveway and went to bed. And needless to say, nobody went to work the next day. Needless to say, he didn't tell him.